Welcome to Accounting High.
I get so upset listening to people talk about, well, we got to make the accounting firm more efficient. We got to have systems and processes. Yes, of course you need some. I'm not saying that you don't need any, but this hyper quest for efficiency, it's the antithesis of being an artist. Yeah. It's the antithesis of it.
We're creating art as we go about our lives. I love this whole thing because there's so many people that are calling themselves content creators now, and they're always creating content. And they say you need to do that for your marketing for your firm. And I think this is another way of looking at that, because the best content creators are the ones that say you're always creating content. Everything you're doing.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. It's freshman year at a brand new school. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. So hang tight and learn with us as we grow. At Accounting High, you can expect to gain knowledge in a completely different way than what you may be used to, with some fun and oftentimes colorful conversations involving some of the best teachers in the accounting industry. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to us right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And feel free to leave us a 5-star review letting us know how the school year is treating you. So sit back, relax, and open your mind because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
by Accounting High.
The views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
The events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah. So without further ado, introducing the star of our show,
Scotty and Principal Baker. I'm back in the principal's office again.
It's great to be here, Scott, especially after our epic 3-hour conversation
it was
last year.
And I just released part 2 today. So it's like, I don't know if it was like coincidence. I also just finished another rap today. Like,
oh, cool. You had just finished a rap when we talked last time.
That day.
Yeah.
Unplanned, unprovoked. It just happened to be ready to finish today. I think it was this book. So I come with a book in my hand into the principal's office. This is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And during our last conversation, I brought up Rick Rubin. I actually compared him to you as we were talking about Greg Kite's the parody video. Right. And I was calling you the producer. And I had no idea that this book was even coming out at that point. Like this is a brand new book. And when I was reading the book, I also thought of you. I see Rick Rubin as my spiritual guide for my life and just in general. Like the vein that he hits in my life has traveled with me throughout my. When I first found music, it was Rick Rubin's music. It was the music that he produced. The first song that really hit me and was monumental in my life, I think I was like 8 years old. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge. And he took them to a different place. Rick Rubin has taken artists to an entirely different place. And I see him as the spiritual guide.
How'd you learn about him? Because isn't this his only book from what I can see? Mm-hmm. So how'd you learn about Rick Rubin?
Well, reading the notes on the albums that I love, and I kept seeing his name, like just all throughout between hip hop and rock and just all kinds of artists. His name just kept coming up, so I would learn more and more about it. And my dad too. My dad would like tell me who he was and just how many different people he produced, and like similarities in some of the production, and just there was just this. Elusiveness about him, though. Anytime I would read an article about it, he's not in the public eye at all. Not until he had his podcast, as of the last couple of years. He has a podcast on Malcolm Gladwell's network, Pushkin, and it's called Broken Record. And he just goes deep with a lot of the artists that he's worked with, or that he's produced, or that he's just tangentially related to. He has always been like just not in the public eye, always behind the scenes. So I always knew of him as like, just like this person in the room. The way it was described was he doesn't actually really do anything, but he contributes so much toward the art that's being produced. And what this book has done was put that into words, like put the not anything into words, but it's so much, and it's so instrumental for a lot of these artists. Like it could be life-changing working with him, and it takes them to an entirely new place. And some artists can't create that magic again until they work with him again. I've seen it happen with the Chili Peppers. He's been referenced as the fifth Chili Pepper. All of their best albums, I guess best is always subjective, right? Right. But I always saw it as music, and listening to him more, I see it as a deeper level of taking that through life, and now also with business too. Just in my life, like being able to balance the art and the art and the purpose, I guess, or going forward. What I've been doing and what we talked about on the last episode is very artistic, and I'm trying to bring that into the accounting world. But as it relates to how I see you, like, you guys have that deeper voice too anyway. And this, like, you guys are different people, obviously, but you've been very monumental in changing how I ran my firm and the things that I did at my firm and the ideas. It's the big ideas that you had always clicked with me. And I took them and ran with them. And sometimes I bastardized them. Sometimes I did them the wrong way or did things different. But I never heard anybody else in the accounting space talking about things with the passion that you have and with the difference. Like, you're taking models that have been around for hundreds of years and upending them and using some of the other greats as examples. Like, you always use Disney and Apple, like we said on the last episode. So I think on the business side, and then from like an artistic and spiritual side, these are like my two spiritual guides in my life. So
wow, well, to be in the same class with Rick Rubin, wow, that's because he's my guide now after reading this book. I mean, I love this guy, and I didn't realize this was his only book. You're right; he's not in the public eye. He doesn't even have an Amazon author. Well, he has an author page, but he doesn't have a photo on it.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, this is, and that's the way he prefers it, and sure. Just the way that he lives his life. This book to me, so another funny similarity. So on our latest Hard Numbers episode I released with Ackerman, my other co-host on your first episode, and he said that his dad has been walking around with Time's Up like it's Moses with the tablets, right? He's been walking around like Moses with the tablets with your book. And I've said this before he even said that to me. I've said this to everybody I talk to. I'm walking around with this like it's my Bible. Book. Yeah, I'm walking around with creative. I've got it on the audiobook. I've got it on Audible. I listen to it on my walks now, and I just read it every night. Like, when I first got it, I didn't know where to start, so I just opened up random pages and just started reading, because it's not that linear. Like, the book isn't necessarily you have to read from front to back.
Right. You can just dive in anywhere, really.
Anywhere. Yeah. And some of it is like it threads together, and there's like themes, but you can just get anything out of it at any time. So I'm excited to dive into this with you. I want to hear first your first impressions of it, and I also have a little summary that Jasper helped me out with that I can read as we get into it too. But I want to hear your first take on it, because you just shared with me before we started recording.
Well,
what you thought of it.
You mentioned him when we talked, and I didn't know who he was, although I figured out he was a music producer from, what you were saying about him. And then I heard him on the Tyler Cowen podcast. Tyler Cowen's an economist. He's got this podcast, Conversations with Tyler. Here's Rick Rubin. I didn't make the connection between what you said and who I was listening to. And I was listening to him, and just, the host asks really great, I mean, phenomenal questions. So it's a really good interview. And I was just so impressed with him. I said, I got to check out this guy's book. I bought the book and I almost put it down and closed it up because it kind of wasn't holding my attention past the 10th page or something. But then I'm glad I stuck with it because I know you like the P word, Scott. There's profundity on every page.
Ooh, that's another good P word. Yeah.
With this book. And I mean, it starts out, this is great. Creativity is not a rare ability. It's a fundamental aspect of being human. It's in all of us.
Yeah.
It's so true. We're all creative. And then people walk around, well, I'm not creative. I can't draw. I can't sing. I'm tone deaf. And I'm all those things. I can't do any of that. But that doesn't mean we can't be creative in other ways.
We're creating every time we do something. Anything in life, we're creating something new. I love how he said that. And it's just, it doesn't exclusively have to be art. It can be finding a new route home was one of the examples. That's creating something.
Yep. The other thing I really appreciated about this guy, and now I know why he's your spiritual advisor, is because he makes the profound distinction between being physical and being spiritual. We're a combination of both as humans. We need both. Obviously, we need food, water, all of those things from a physical aspect, but there's a spiritual component to us, and that's what art's all about, spiritual. I think we talked about this maybe on the first time I was with you.
Is the
Joshua Bell, the violin player. You can take a violin to a lab, you can measure it, you get all the physical dimensions, but when he picks it up and play it and you weep or march off to war, Darwin can't explain music. Evolution doesn't explain when music hits us. We can't measure a tune in a lab. I can't take your rap song and bring it into a lab and figure out if it's subjectively good or objectively good. But when you play it, and it affects me emotionally, that's spiritual.
Yeah. The art and soul of accounting was the title of your first episode. Another great tie into this, because this is like, again, it's bridging both of these worlds too. And something you said that you wanted to touch on was the difference between an artist and an entrepreneur.
Let's leave that for later. Let's go through some of his, let him build up the artist case.
I love it.
Because I love how he says, we tend to think of artist work as the output, right? The painting, the sculpture. He said, but the real work of the artist is a way of being in the world. And I love that. That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah. A way of being, and a way of approaching, just a way of looking at life with this, and I'm excited to talk about this because it's so many parallels to the way I've been living my life as of the last couple of years. But
think about this distinction, Scott. We tend to think of the artist's work as the output.
Yeah.
What do we think about in accounting firms when we're running accounting firms? Oh, what's the tech stack? How are we going to get project management, workflow, output? Well, is that really our way of being?
It's our outcomes that we should be measuring, right?
Yeah. It's even deeper than that. It's like our way of being would just, like an artist, look at each project and say, oh, what are we going to learn here? How am I going to sculpt this? How am I going to make a better product or better outcome for the customer, rather than getting all caught up in the deadlines and are we getting work through efficiently? I mean, he says in here multiple times that our quest for efficiency destroys the creative act. And it's so true.
Yeah.
That's why I get so upset listening to people talk about, well, we got to make the accounting firm more efficient. We got to have systems and processes. Yes, of course you need some. I'm not saying that you don't need any, but this hyper quest for efficiency, it's the antithesis of being an artist. Yeah. It's the antithesis of it.
It's and like he says, we are all art. We're creating art as we go about our lives. I love this whole thing because there's so many people that are calling themselves content creators now, and they're always creating content. And they say you need to do that for your marketing for your firm. And I think this is another way of looking at that, because the best content creators are the ones that say you're always creating content. Everything you're doing is content, and you could use that. So always be filming or always be recording, because you're going to be able to use that content in some way or another. That's how I started to kind of live my life too, because everything that every conversation I have, like, half the time I'm talking to people, they're like, "Oh, we should have recorded this. This would be great for your show." Yeah, I'm sure you hear that too. So let me read this little summary that Jasper put together for it.
Awesome.
So Rick Rubin's new book, The Creative Act, has provided valuable insight into the creative process and the importance of taking risks. In this book, he outlines how to create innovative thinking through strategies such as dreaming and designing, strategic experimentation, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. Rubin's writing style is easy to read, yet provides detailed instructions. He dives deep into topics such as finding inspiration in unlikely places, managing creative risks and failures, and pushing past fear and doubt. Accountants can use this book as a guide for their own innovation process. It encourages them to explore unconventional methods for problem solving, think outside the box when it comes to client solutions, and take calculated risks in order to find success not only in their profession, but also in their personal lives. The Creative Act is an invaluable asset for anyone hoping to tap into creativity and foster an environment of innovative thinking. What do you think?
I think that's pretty good.
There's our book report right there.
For an AI bot, that's pretty good.
I know. And I only gave it a little prompt. I was just like, write a book report on Rick Rubin's The Creative Act for an accountant.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
So that's what I brought to the principal's office. Did I cheat by using AI?
No, hell no. So did you see the kerfuffle over the one university's DEI office sent Michigan University condolences, on the shooting that just happened? I think it was last week. And the condolence was written by Chat GPT. And they forgot to remove that at the end. And people are just making a big stink about it. Why, how could you possibly not write, a human condolence card? Well, people go to Hallmark and buy a condolence card because they can't find the words. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure it's any different, but.
Well, and I would love to hear Rick's take on something like this too, because in the act of having the AI and telling the AI what to say in and of itself is also the act of putting that together. Like you said, going to the store and buying the card is the same thing as telling the AI what you want to convey and having it write it for you, because as humans, we sometimes don't have the words and we don't have a way of expressing how we really feel. And, you can filter through what the AI says and then adjust it to your own voice. He does talk about AI in here too, and the way that we can work together with it. So I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into the AI because that's a really hot topic now. Everybody's talking about AI. Yeah. So I like to bridge that in here because I think what I found fascinating too is AI is not even that great at math. It can't do math yet, but it's blowing my mind on what it can do in the literary sense. And I've never been a good writer. I've never been good at all the written stuff. That's why I need to still do book reports at this age. But, well, you can do book reports at any age in life. I think books are the lifeblood of our knowledge and intellect. I don't know where I'm going with this besides the fact that is now an augmentation for me, because I've always been able to do math, but the written and I'm just not good at articulating things a lot. I'm not a good communicator. So this is helping me become a better communicator as well. So I don't know. It's another arm for that, but
yeah, I think it's a complement to human intelligence, not a substitute for it. So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. It's not going to replace us in the sense that we think.
I'm never worried about that.
Yeah. So let's go into some of these chapters, or let's go into like the impact that the book had on you in general. What's jumping out at you?
We talked last time about humor. You were talking about Dave Chappelle, subscribing to his podcast, and I was talking about South Park and, John Cleese's great line that all humor is critical. And what Rick says is art is confrontation. And he says, as soon as convention is established, the most interesting work would likely be the one that doesn't follow it. That's profound. That is so true. That is so true. And there is a great saying by a great line from Arthur Schopenhauer. I had to write this down because I had to look it up, but he was a German philosopher. And he said, a new idea, when you come to the world with a new idea, first, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it's accepted as self-evident. And I've added a fourth one. People will say, oh, I told you all along it was a good idea, after 40 years or whatever. And that's just, it made me think of that because art is confrontation.
Well,
ideas can be too. Ideas are art, right? They spring from somewhere. Everything sprung from a human mind somewhere. I mean, committees don't create, there's a great Porsche commercial. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche is talking, and it's grainy, it's black and white. And he's like, Porsches aren't designed by a committee. We have individuals in this building that know the heart and soul of what this automobile is trying to do and what it's trying to be. And he just talks about the creative act of creating a new Porsche. And it's just a phenomenal commercial because it's, art isn't a committee.
No.
It's a human being bearing his soul and showing you how he sees the world or she sees the world. And man, there's something profoundly human about that.
Well, it definitely relates to the way you've had to deal with your ideas and your approach to your ideas. You've gone through those phases with value pricing.
Oh yeah,
time with everything. Like there's a lot of great imagery in this book and a lot of great just steps. And again, it's the ways of being and the ways of approaching things. And so that's why I, when you messaged me about this book, I was like, this is a perfect book for Ron to read because it speaks your language. He's very poetic in the way that he speaks and the way that he's written this book, but it's those same philosophies that you've basically been living throughout your life too. So was there anything that was that you felt like he was speaking or talking to you in particular?
Wow. He says, our continual quest for efficiency discourages looking too deeply. Boy, is that's profound. I mean, that is so true. I remember one of the videos that Greg Kite shot. He had a buddy who was an actor, and he was playing his employee, and he said, "Hey, Scott, where are those efficiency? Where are those? What did he call it? Where are those Lean Six Sigma reports?" And the guy turned around from his cubicle and he said, slow down, boss. You can't rush efficiency. It was a great, I mean, the quest for efficiency ignores the big questions we could ask about, should we be doing this at all? Or is there a better way to do this? Or, is this the only approach to doing this? Because, we have a process, I'm reminded my favorite philosopher, Dr. House again. He's got one line in one show and he says, oh yes, we mustn't let results get in the way of process.
So it's just one of those the themes in here are just somehow happen to fit into everything in my life too. I feel like it's speaking to me. There's a chapter on habits. Our first book report that I did with Twyla was Atomic Habits, and we quoted John Wooten when he was talking about the shoelaces, tying the shoelaces, and that was the first thing that these basketball players did. And the beginning of Rick Rubin's habit chapter is John Wooten's quote about the shoelaces. And he's got a whole chapter on habits and having the right habits in place. And this just brought me right back to James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And the most impactful thing for me was the way he always talks about artists looking at life with the childlike wonder and awe and seeing things in a different way, and how artists are different than the person that's looking at, this is what you're supposed to do. This is all the preconceived notions we have as humans or as adults, the things we've learned that we've taken with us. He says to throw a lot of those things away and look at everything with wonder and awe. And that's how I've been looking at life. And that's how I've always looked at things. I never really saw the rules rules never applied to me. Right. And I always got in trouble throughout life, always, at the firm or in this franchise that I'm in, when they told me this is the way you're supposed to do something, this is the process you're supposed to follow, I had to break it. I had to figure out another way because I never really, there's got to be a better way. There's always a better way to do something. There's always a new way of approaching things. And he says that artists are like children, and the best creators are the ones that approach all of life like a toddler. My rap name is Lil Toddler. So like the way he articulated a lot of these things are just like deep beliefs that I've already had inside of me that now have words, that now have ways of articulating.
That's the best type of book too. When it hits you, you kind of already know it. It may just be reminding you of something, but it expresses it in a new way.
Validation.
Yeah, that too.
It's and that's how I felt when I was reading Time's Up. So like the parallels to this for me, I felt like both of these books were written for me at this time in my life at this stage, right? So those are the best books. Those are the books you can read again and again and keep coming back to. And then there's plenty of books that you should just put down and put away and not even finish because they're conflicting. There's maybe conflicting views on the way you see life. So, we talk about history rhyming and rhythms of when we're talking about Simon Sinek and how a lot of his ideas is just the same wine in a different bottle, right? I think the way with Rick's, it's not necessarily regurgitating or talking about things from the past. He's just synthesizing it in a different way too. Like I'm hearing ideas that I feel like I'm hearing for the first time with Rick. And I feel like this is the first time anybody's ever said this, but I've known it my whole life. It's not even like a rhythm or a rhyme of somebody else. It's synthesizing a hybrid of all these other ideas from all these other places into just one. Here's how to be a human again.
It gives you insight. There's something magical about insight because it's a process that's really hard to explain. You have an insight when you're driving or walking. It could be a sudden insight. It could be a long, slow developing insight. But one of the things that I think this, you've talked multiple times on the show about working on rap and songs and how you're in the flow when you do that. You look up, wow, I spent 9 hours on this or whatever. You just finished one. Here's what he says about that. He says, if we remove time from the equation of a work's development, what we're left with is patience.
Patience.
Think about that. Can I just say that's effing profound?
Yeah.
That is effing this is exactly why we talk about the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Where's the patience with efficiency?
Patience that's a big P word too.
It's a huge P word. That's a huge. This is a huge, huge thought. This is profound. You could write a whole book just on this line.
Yeah, and it gives me chills sometimes too to hear the way he talks about time because it also has rhythms of that. It was Gay Hendricks with The Big Leap was the other book that I mentioned.
Oh, The Big Leap. Yep.
And Einstein time.
Einstein time. Yep.
And again, like a lot of Rick's chapters take that concept to a different place too. He doesn't ever mention Einstein time and he doesn't talk about it in the same way, but he just talks about patience and letting things happen and not forcing anything or not, but also having deadlines and kind of like pushing yourself to finish something, having patience for the ideas for the seeds to germinate and to grow and to see where they grow and to let everything grow and then prune them and then continue to develop them. But these ideas have shelf lives too. So to have patience with what you're creating and to not artificially push it forward, but then also and that's what got me to, I stopped the book and I finished the rap that I had been working on for maybe a month at this point, like 3-4 weeks. Like I said, the last rap I wrote was the last one we recorded December 30th. And I had, I got like 3 or 4 that I want to work on. And this was the one that like I actually started and I finished the first verse and I just let it sit. And I tend to do that a lot. I let things sit and I don't get back to them because I'm waiting for like the perfect magical moment or the inspiration to hit. I don't need the inspiration anymore. It's already hit. I need to actually finish it. And so this pushed me to do that because it's tax season. I can't just let this is the tax accountant's anthem. I can't let this one go to April. I got to finish it, right? I've got my own artificial deadline that I need to put on it, and this way the art can be expressed. I found that this is happening to me a lot. I keep getting in my own way of releasing things, or I'm fighting perfection, and I don't have patience because I have a great idea and I'm not patient enough to see it through. And then I'm telling people, the imagination gap that Rick talks about, that Dave Barrett talked about on his episode, I'm trying to express some of my ideas, but I don't have the rhythm and the beats that are going with them. So I'm just kind of like trying to beat my hand on a table so somebody can hear the song that's in my head.
Right.
And you can never hear the song that you're beating on there, right? Like,
right.
That's the imagination gap. So I don't know, again, it's like so impactful in so many different directions and areas of my life and elements of, ways of being. So let's talk about some of these other.
The other thing he says that I really liked, and this kind of goes back to all art is confrontation, but he says, if you've truly created innovative work, it's likely to alienate as many people as it attracts. The best art divides the audience.
That impacted me a lot too.
That's huge. That's true. Yeah.
Your ideas, that happens with your ideas. And you're onto something when you have people that are really passionate about it, that love it, that express how you've spoken to them or what you've done to, I hear that a lot. Like I've been inspiring people and people that are listening to episodes, they come reach out, but I also know that I'm alienating myself. And there are some things that I do, and there's things that I say that are turning people off too. So, and part of it's probably the drug talk, and part of it's just my philosophical way of saying things and questioning things. I question everything, and a lot of people don't like things to be questioned. They like the status quo, and it
like certainty.
They like certainty. It makes them feel safe. This is the way we've always done it. We don't want to do it differently. We don't want to change. We want to protect our way of life. You've been put up against this. Your ideas are divisive. So yeah, confrontation is important too in life. You have to challenge the status quo, and it's not always going to be right. I mean, sometimes you're going to be met with too much force, and maybe it's not at the right time to change something, or maybe it's just not that idea's time, right? But
I've mentioned this guy before when we talked. Tim Williams, my VeraSage colleague, he's in the advertising space, so he works with marketing agencies. He's kind of like David Baker. You would put those two in the same.
David Baker. She just went to see him speak or see.
Yeah. And Tim talks about purpose a lot. In fact, he was the one that really got me hooked on purpose. It was long before Simon's TED Talk came out. And one of the things, he's got these questions, I think they're in the book. He's got these questions to test your purpose. And one of the things he says about your company's purpose is it should be debatable. Because if it's not debatable, it's milquetoast. So, the purpose of VeraSage was, the only place time spent should matter is in prison. Now that's debatable, right? We can have a fight about that. We can have an argument about that.
Yeah.
But boy, if you put out something that's just bland, like the Super Bowl commercials this year, which I thought were horrific, terrible, because nobody wants to take a risk on offending anybody. So they use animals and, or they go back to Caddyshack themes, which is only funny because it's Caddyshack, for crying out loud, one of the best movies ever made. But yeah, we need to confront, just like comedians need to punch back.
So that's something just happened to me recently in this vein. Like I didn't even do something that was controversial. Like, so the other night, Frankie asked me, why are brown people called black, and why are some tan and peach people called white? And so I thought it was a great question. I was like, that is a great question. And I approached it with the same childlike wonder, and like, I honestly don't know. I don't know how to answer this. So I made a tweet about it. And the tweet went exactly like I said. That was his question. And I said, now maybe I didn't articulate it the right way, but I said, honestly, nobody is truly white or black in the color, in the sense that we know these colors. There is no human person that is purely white or purely black. We're all different shades of tan or brown. And oh my God, the controversy of that tweet.
Jeez.
People pounced on me. I I don't even know how it turned into what it. People bastardized what I said, and then all of a sudden I'm getting canceled on Twitter from these ladies that are just like, slinging mud at me left and right, and I don't even know what the hell's going on, and all of them are white. None of them were like.
And that says more about them than it does you, because you weren't there to offend anybody. It's like, okay, great, you're offended. We have people now that just walk around waiting to be offended, and I just find it so annoying.
Yeah, they're waiting to be offended. They're waiting to jump on somebody. Like,
absolutely.
What did somebody do to you to like? That does say something. This is what Rick says too. See, I called him Ron. He said, when people give you feedback on your creations, your art, it tells you more about them than it does about the art itself or about what you did. So when you listen to them, don't ever take their criticism or anything they say the wrong way. Take it as only listen if it's something that you intuitively thought, or if something that was in your subconscious that was revealed through the feedback.
Right.
So important. It's so important for me too, because sometimes I'll take everybody's opinion and try to synthesize that into another version.
Work.
No,
it
doesn't
work.
But
it's got to be yours. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. There's so much to say about that topic. But
yeah, I don't ever mean to offend anybody or do anything like that, but I know the things I do are divisive, and the things that I say can be divisive because I'm one of those people that question why, like why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why are we doing it this way? I don't get it. Like, and people just get so frustrated with me. Like, what do you mean you don't get it? This is how you're supposed. You've been doing this for your whole life, and now you're asking you don't get it why you're supposed to do this. And it's just like, and some people are patient. Some people have patience. Some people just don't want to deal with questioning that status quo. So it's this is why I have these spiritual guides, right? Because it's validating for me to see that I'm not the only person like this. I feel alien. My first rap was CP Aliens. And sometimes I feel alien, like in the group of people. I don't feel like I belong. And I used to always try to fit in. I used to always try to like change my natural instinct to fit in with the crowd so I could be one of the crowd.
right.
And it wasn't until I finally said, F that, like I got to just follow my gut and my instincts because I'm going to feel better that way. And Rick says this a lot too. It's always the people that follow their gut, or he said this with himself too. He, all throughout his career, he always followed his own intuition, and almost every step along the way, there was always people that told him you shouldn't do that in business and in his career choices. Almost every time he really felt passionately about doing something one way, it was always the people that he either he looked up to or that were authoritative that told him you shouldn't do that. That is not the way to do it. Right. And in a lot of cases in my life too, I've always made choices and done things that nobody would in their right mind would do, but it was just like my kind of intuition or gut. And a lot of times it just seemed to work out if I did. But if I ever listened to people and did something differently, I'd always sometimes regret it in a way too. So, and
the world is replete with the experts telling people that they can't do something. And the Walt Disney story, right? The 4 leading park owners who told Walt that your idea for Disneyland will never work.
Right. And
he ended up doing it anyway, and then hiring 2 of them as consultants.
And it's whenever people say you're not going to make any money doing this, or this is not going to, and it's the people that following their guts that don't necessarily care about money. I think it's you that said this in your episode, but I've been listening to that and the Rick Rubin book, and I think Rick also says that in a lot of ways in different aspects of it. There is a commercial aspect of this. There's a commercial aspect of this, and you do have to keep that in mind. But that's not what the art is. The art is never about the commerce. Dave Chappelle talks about this a lot too. There's a new episode just came out of his show too. So these are my philosophers. Dave Chappelle is another one of my spiritual guides. But
yeah, that's a good one.
And the way that Rick talked about how the universe kind of speaks to you, and there was a great metaphor, or just the way everything is coming at you in a conveyor belt. And it's up to you to grab the pieces of inspiration that you want along the way. You can put them back on there. You can decide to take something, but everything that's passing us, it doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter where you are. It could be, you could be doing the same thing day after day after day, and it's always going to be different. And there's always going to be something that you could take with you to the project that you're working on or to create a new project. There's an endless, you said this to me too, there's an endless amount of content and ideas out there. Never going to run out of material. Never going to run out of things to do. It's just a matter of the timing and when you approach things, and when it's right in front of you, when you're ready for it, you grab it. And he brought up a story of when he was going to get a doctor told him to get his appendix, or he needed his appendix taken out, or it was going to burst. And he happened to be in a bookstore when he had talked to the doctor, and he opened up a book, and he opened up a page that said, you should never remove something from your body if a doctor tells you need to. Like, what are the odds of all of that? Like, that's the universe speaking to you that put something in front of you right at that time for you to pay attention. And a lot of us go through our lives and go through our days without paying attention to everything. We're just on autopilot, and we're just going through the motions. We show up to the office. We do what we're supposed to do. We file this. We do this. We go home, and it's just that same routine, and we never stop to look at what's in front of us.
That's so true. So the thing that makes me think about is, and is it true for writing a rap too? I would imagine, is when I'm working on a book, I mean, it's in you. You're walking around. I mean, Ayn Rand used to say, "I'm with child." I'm with novel. I'm sorry. I'm with novel. Because you walk around with this thing in your head, no matter, if you're getting a coffee or whatever. And I can remember being in Seattle working on The Firm of the Future, the first book I wrote with Paul Dunn, and talking about intellectual capital and social capital and structural capital and human capital. And then, the newspaper in the hotel was, I think it was USA Today, and it was Disney announcing, they're going to do Pirates of the Caribbean as a movie. And it's like, holy crap. That's the best illustration of leveraging intellectual capital. You've got a ride at Disneyland that's, 40 years old at the time or whatever it was. And now they're going to leverage that again into a movie. I mean, they're brilliant at it. They just keep leveraging. It was brilliant. And they keep they keep doing it too. Like they keep making new versions of the cartoons that were popular, Disney, but we can go on for days. Yeah. It's such a weird, intellectual capital is such a weird thing to talk about though. And it's hard to dream up examples. And that thing, when that newspaper had that, I just thought, shit, if I hadn't been living with this book, I would have never given that story a second thought. But it was like the perfect story at the perfect moment.
Yeah. And so I got another one for you. So I figured out my first book. I'm going to pitch this to you because you can probably help make this happen. My mom got me a book for Christmas. She got me two of them. How to Rap.
How to Rap.
And I was just to have my mom actually give this some validation and look at it, because my whole life it was just like, it was silly to them. My dad, was the music that my dad never enjoyed. And it was like the same thing with him, with the Beatles. Like his dad never liked that music. And now my dad never liked rap. My mom was just like indifferent to it. She didn't really even like music. She got me this for Christmas, and I've been reading it, and it's got like, over 100 different artist interviews that they wove through the book, and the book is separated out into sections of like content and delivery and flow and just everything about rap. And then within the chapters, it's just got quotes from these long interviews from these rappers that are sectioned off into each particular section. So when you're reading the content section, it's all of the different rappers just discussing that, and then somebody's threading it together. And I thought, as I was reading this, I mean, it's great and it's helped me through the raps. But I said, I have so many people that have been instrumental in the change of our profession and the change of running a modern day accounting firm. I have all these interviews from all these episodes that I've already recorded, and this whole school theme and faculty, and I basically could just take the aspects of running a firm and section that off into a book and thread in all the quotes that I have on my content library from the people that are actually doing it. So it's how to run an accounting practice, but the title of the book is How to RAP, RAAP, Run an Accounting Practice. The same model off of this book too, right? So I'm gonna co-write it with Terrell Turner. I don't know if you know Terrell. He's got the Business Talk library. You might have been on his show. I know Ed was. So I think we're going to co-write it together using both of our content libraries. He's our librarian. You know Terrell, yeah, because he's our librarian on the faculty. I got to pitch this to you because I want to see if we can get Wiley as our publisher for this. And Terrell's a writer already, and I think we can make the modern day how to run an accounting practice, right? The modern day practice, because there isn't that one book on how to do this. And I think we can take all the ideas from the people that are actually doing it, from the thought leaders, from you, from our other faculty, and synthesize a pretty cool, like, how-to book. So,
this is so cool. I can think of a title for Map to Rap. MAP was managing an accounting practice. And I think the first time that acronym was used, it was in 1974, Kansas City, Missouri. They used to do the annual MAP conference. And I knew one of the guys who founded it. Lawson was his name. And anyway, Scott, this is 1974. This is prior to that Bates-Osteen case I talked about from the Supreme Court that opened up advertising in the accounting firm space. Before that, you couldn't advertise. It was an old boys network. You didn't advertise. You certainly didn't talk about pricing. You didn't steal clients from one another. If one of my clients called you and said, "Oh, gee, I'm frustrated with Baker. I want to switch to you, Scott," you would have picked up the phone and called me and said, "Hey, Ron, you've got this client. Go fix this relationship." But these guys were talking about management of accounting practice. They were talking about financial numbers and KPIs and how to run a more profitable firm. It's 1974 when it launched, and there were gasps in the audience because you just didn't talk about this in public in the 70s. And it was known as MAP. And I think they still use that acronym in state societies. I think the AICPA still uses the MAP acronym. Certainly the older people, anybody above 30 is going to probably know that acronym. But I just think that's friggin' awesome.
And I got the rap map in front of me behind my computer screen. It's an actual rap map of the rappers in Atlanta. So I could probably use that and bridge it too. But this is part of what Rick was saying is everything's right in front of us. This book is the other one that I've been carrying around and reading along with yours, right? And I've been working a lot with Terrell already because he's been instrumental in me fixing my content library and getting some consistency in here. And he's just a real systems guy and good friend of mine. So, I just like the idea came to me in the middle of recording with Nicole and Kenji. The episode is going to be released on Monday, but it was just like it all came together all at once. And sometimes these ideas, like, you said this once, sometimes right about to go to bed, and Rick said the exact same thing you did. But it's like you have an idea that's burning through and you have to get up and write, and you have to do that. It doesn't matter if it's, midnight. You could be writing until the morning, but you're just the conduit for this idea. It's just right. It's come to you, and you've got to let it all out. And Rick really stresses that. He says, when inspiration hits, because you never know when it's going to hit, especially for an artist or for anybody, you've got to let that channel through you and get it all out there. That's how I felt last night too. When I finished the rap, I only had one verse, and then yesterday I wrote the second and third verse, and I started recording it last night. I didn't finish recording it until like an hour before our call. And so what you're going to hear is what I had literally just finished today. But it's so funny the way all these things happen and the way it all kind of just comes together. And I'm really excited about all these things too. But when you look at it from it's actually so cool that you said the map thing, because manage isn't what we're supposed to do anymore. It is. We need to evolve that as well.
That was, the reason I think that came into my mind from MAP to RAP is because this is part of the generational shift that we were talking about last time. I mean, MAP is the old school and RAP is the new school.
RAP is the new school, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know how well MAP was a big deal through my whole time in accounting. We talked about MAP studies, benchmarking, everything was MAP. CPE was labeled MAP, management of accounting practice, marketing, pricing, all of those issues. So
I can't wait for rap to be the new thing. Everybody's talking about rap.
That's awesome. I mean,
we're running
use that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to be instrumental in helping with this book too, whether you like it or not. You're the principal, so you're going to be maybe editor or producer of it somehow. And so Rick talks about the difference that everybody is unique in the way that they do things, and this is how accounting firm owners are too. Everybody's firm is unique. We talked about this on the last episode we just had. Everybody's doing things in their own different way, and there isn't one way, and you're excited to see how people are going to take these ideas and run with them. You're just presenting the ideas, and it's the firm owner that has to do it their own way. So, our listeners, our students, or anybody out there, they can take any of these ideas they want and do them their own way or not, choose not to. And Rick says that all artists are different in the way that they create, and he never, ever has any premeditated way of working with somebody. It's always adapting to them. There are ways of being, and there are ways, philosophy of ways of doing things, but he's not rigid in the approach. He said some writers just have the idea for something and somebody else executes on it, or somebody else actually is doing the writing. Like for an author, they have the whole story lined out in their head. They have the vision for all of it, but they can't get the words out, and they need somebody else to act. They can outline it, but then somebody else fleshes it out. Some people don't have anybody helping at all, and they do the whole process themselves. I did this with the beginning with this podcast. I didn't have any help at all, and I probably should have. Everybody said you need an editor, you need this to do it, and I really wanted to learn. Like I wanted to learn the editing. I didn't start rapping until I started messing with the editing of the podcast. And messing with mics and learning the aspects of audio, and that's what got me to bridge, to take the next step. Now I have an editor, and I know how to work with an editor, but I had to understand all that stuff for myself too. So I'm going in a lot of different directions, but it's all with the creator and I think this leads us into the difference between the artist and the entrepreneur too, right? So it leads us to like the business owner. They are unique, and nobody's done everything the way they have. Every person obviously is a snowflake, right? And nobody has our own viewpoints. So even with me, the way I do these parodies, I'm trying to create an exact replica of something that's already there, and I'm trying to bridge different ideas and pull it all together, right? So the way I did this rap is it's not even just my voice. It's a bunch of people that I know on tax Twitter and I took their most popular tweets. So I synthesized, I took all of the most popular tweets from the people that I look to, or that have, lots of followers and lots of activity. And I asked them all individually, collect some of the stuff that I just gave them all a prompt, and they all collected a bunch of their tweets that were really popular as it relates to a tax practitioner in tax season. So I got those voices, and then I have the actual, Rough Riders anthem song. So I got DMX's voice, and that wasn't even my idea either. That was another buddy of mine when I was at the Gusto thing up in Denver recently in January. That this was his idea too. So none of these is actually my idea. I'm just the one who put it all together. I'm just kind of like piecing it all together and trying to fit all the words in and get everything to rhyme. And it was still a lot of effort, but I don't even consider myself as like the actual writer of any of this. I'm just doing this one for the people. This isn't sponsored or anything like that. So, but I guess it is unique, right? Like, even though I'm taking a parody of another song, there's nobody else that could do that. And I think it's obvious the way I look at all these things. Like, this should have already been written. All of these things should have already been done that I'm doing. I'm just the only person that's actually done it yet. So,
yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
So
one more thing that struck me about Rubin is he said, when we share our work and our ideas, they are replenished. If we block the flow, new ideas are slow to appear. If we live in a mindset of scarcity, we hoard great ideas, and the more we share, the more our skills improve. choosing to live in scarcity leads to stagnation. And I've had people my entire career tell, especially after I wrote the book, my God, why would you want to write the book and just give all your intellectual capital away, for the price of a $20 book or whatever, $80 book? And I said, because if I give it away, I have to replenish it. Mm-hmm. And that's what keeps me at the leading edge. If I try and hoard it and trademark it and, put these things on it, and it just traps you into not only a scarcity mindset, but I think you also degrade because now you're so invested in that old idea. What if it becomes obsolete? But you're so invested in it now that you can't give it up. So give it all away. Give it all away. And then you have to replenish it.
Well, the more that you give, the more that you have too. And that's an abundance, right? So scarcity and abundance. James Ashford talks about that a lot in his episode. And I really want to get Michelle Weinstein. She's the abundant accountant. I want to get her on this show too.
I just did a podcast with her.
Yeah. I think it's the abundant accountant. I'm going to have to reach out to her too, because she talks about abundance. And I think that's that's a mindset shift that I have to have in life, in everything. I need to have that for money, but also for the creation act. And I think I've had that mindset shift already. It's just now of internalizing it too. And there's different phases of mindset shift. That's our first Accounting High guide blog. My mom's been helping with is on mindset shifts. So stay tuned for that. But
a couple throwaway, just real quick. I got to get this. This is so, again, just profundity on every page. The content changes the content. The context changes the content. We talked about this with Joshua Bell. He can fill the Kennedy Center and make $1 million a night, but they throw him down the Metro DC subway station playing the violin, save Joshua Bell, and he makes $35 in tips. Art is the price of making it. Exposing your vulnerability is the fee. Ooh. Competition serves the ego. Cooperation supports the highest outcome.
Say that one again.
Competition serves the ego. Cooperation supports the highest outcome.
This goes back to our last conversation.
How much should we talk about the other alliances and networks that are out there? And they're not competition. We're all cooperating to raise to a higher level, not just ourselves, but the entire profession. And he's right. Competition serves the ego. Nike's famous for just do it. Yeah. But their value statement, or one of their mission statements at the time, was just 2 words: crush Adidas. Now, that probably gave something, for people to rally around and, to focus on. But what good is that? The world isn't big enough for Adidas and Nike? Give me a break.
This is the infinite game. This is what Simon says. Simon says this for Microsoft. Used to have that saying of beat Apple.
Beat Apple, yeah. And Apple ran that ad when Microsoft came out with their computer, and Apple ran that ad in the Wall Street Journal, and it said, welcome IBM, welcome in the water, it's warm, and people used to joke, the biggest lies are checks in the mail, and of course I'll respect you in the morning, and welcome IBM. Those are the 3 biggest lies. He also says art goes deeper than thought.
Ooh.
Which is fantastic. And he said, this call to self-express our creative purpose, like graffiti scrawled in a bathroom stall, I was here.
Ooh.
Love that. Art goes beyond language, beyond lives. And the magic is not in analyzing or the understanding. The magic lives in the wonder of what we do not know.
I can't wait till I have a conversation with Rick one day too. That's dope.
This is some philosophical stuff that you just,
it's a way of being.
It is. It's just totally, yeah.
But you can't I loved. It was the Tim Ferriss interview that he had, and he was talking about the process of writing the book and the original concept of the book and how it changed over time and the length of time that it took, but it just took the time that it needed to take. And I'm just still amazed that he was able to get this into a book. Like, and as I'm reading it, as I'm listening to it, as I'm going over it again and again, it's just like perfection. Like you can't, there is no perfection. There's no perfect. It's profundity. It's profound. And it's near impossible to recreate what he's done here. Like I don't know if, and it's dangerous saying things like that. I know that, like but I don't know if I've ever had something that could be as impactful in all aspects of life. So I'm really at the edge of my seat here with the difference between the artist and the entrepreneur. Are we ready for this one yet?
Well, maybe you should play the rap song, and then I'll tell you the difference. How about that?
Ooh, okay. That's
because I'm dying to hear the rap, the new rap.
Right. Good deal. So, like I built up to it. This was DMX's Rough Riders anthem back in '98. Very impactful for me. DMX was one of the first rappers that I was listening to regularly. He died recently. R.I.P. DMX. I am changing my moniker, my rap name from, well, I'm not really changing it. I want to have multiple rap names for different venues of my life. Lil Toddler's always going to be, or at least my plan for Lil Toddler. So I'm going to go into my little soliloquy about the Lil Dicky thing too, and other aspects. But and I did Dave Bird. I talked about that last time. So he's only done one album as Lil Dicky, and it was professional rapper. And he had Snoop Dogg on it. He had a bunch of features. There was the one they paid for with his bar mitzvah money and his GoFundMe money. I want to have one album with Lil Toddler. I'm going to call it The Biggest Lil Toddler. And it's just going to be about that childlike wonder and awe, but then all other childish types ways. And it's going to be poking a lot of fun at myself. But I want to get all the Lils on this album. So I definitely want to have Lil Baby on there. Definitely want to have Lil Dicky on there. Definitely want to have Lil Wayne on there. Definitely want to have all of the other Lils. All my favorite Lils. I want to see if I can make that one album. So Lil Toddler, I just had, before anybody thought I was putting it to bed, I'm definitely not putting it to bed. I want Rick Rubin to produce a track on this album too. I don't know if that's ever going to be possible, but this is my dream here. That's my first and only album for Lil Toddler. That childlike, and just, I feel like Rick is describing me, and I know he's describing all artists that he's worked with, but it gives me validation, and it gives me more drive and more inspiration to continue to do this kind of stuff. So I have an outline for that album. That's on the side. This now is for the accountants, for the business world. My rap name is now OKR. So
OKR, I love it. Okay.
OKR. It stands for OK Rapper.
Okay. Not what it normally stands for.
That's the point. That's double entendre, right? You know, I love my double entendres. Yep. It's a little bit self-deprecating, right? Okay, rapper. That's probably the worst thing somebody could say is, oh, it's okay. You know, like for me,
right.
I want the stuff to be good. I want it actually to land. So I have to have that joke in there. That's like Lil Dicky. Like what kind of person calls himself Lil Dicky, right? Like that's the self-deprecating stuff. So Lil Toddler, same type of thing. So OKR,
awesome
for my business raps. And now, so this is the opening of it. And the DMX, it's perfect because he goes by this acronym and nobody knew what DMX even meant. For a long time, it's supposed to stand for Dark Man X, but I think that's a weak, Dark Man X. I don't even know what the X stands for in that case. So either way, like OKR could mean whatever you want it to mean. In my eyes, it's okay rapper, but it could be objectives and key results too. So here we go. This is the debut of the Tax Accountants Anthem.
Something's due. Stop. Don't drop. Your source stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no. Taxable income is not cash flow. Stop. Don't drop. Your source stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no. taxable income is not cash flow.
Tax clients try and lie. Tax pros want to comply. Tax clients whine and cry. Tax pros go run and hide.
All we know is pain. Tax season is insane. We will remain profane with all this tax law on our brain.
Now we file compliance, taxes for our clients, and we remain unbiased when your tax rate is the highest. Our tax prep is accurate. You got it, no you don't get it. Carry it forward and forget it, that's a non-refundable credit.
Who you gonna run to? The service ran up on you. There should be no issue. When you're truthful, then you're bulletproof.
We agree TurboTaxes. It's so easy, do your own taxes. We see no SE taxes, IRS sees and Mo taxes.
Nothing we can't handle. Facts are circumstantial. It's a systemic issue. Now your return is under review. No, that will not abate your penalty without debate. Cheapskate, we get irate when you underappreciate. Stop! Don't drop! You store stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no! Taxable income is not cash flow. Stop! Don't drop! You store stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no! Taxable income is not cash flow.
Y'all know tax season's crazy. My employees getting lazy. Stop acting like it's easy. Mind your business, attorney.
Y'all think taxes are simple? Well, let me explain something to you. Our parting ways is long overdue. We're just too nice to fire you.
Another tax deadline countdown. Watch tax pros have meltdowns. Post-tax season wind down. Office gonna be a ghost town.
Oh, you can't get a hold of me? Need a copy of your 1040? We sent that shit already. That'll be $1.50 to print a copy.
Oh, you don't know how to read? Get it to me by March 30. Tax due by 4/15. It's too late. You're not early. You trying to buy a home and you need a loan, and broker just said don't write nothing off? Hell no. Lied to justify your PPP way back in 2020. Try to qualify for ERC, but employees, you don't have any.
I don't think they'll ever end this reign of terror. I'm a tax preparer and I will amend an error. Stop! Don't drop! You store stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no! Taxable income is not cash flow. Stop! Don't drop! You store stocks in a shoebox. Oh, no! Taxable income is not cash flow.
Look at all the returns we started. Asked for info, now we got it. Had it, we should have finished it. Now we got to extend it.
Yes, my tax staff is in the U.S. enrolled to practice before the IRS. We are the tax accountants. We deal with clients and compliance.
What info are you waiting for? Get these returns out the door. You elected to be an S Corp, but now it's April 4th. Return due back in March. 2553 still in the drawer. Have you filed late before? Oh, you only took draws? Now it's time to send your 941X. Grab the pre-printed in red. Yeah, that's taxed by the Fed. Another terrible spreadsheet. We don't cheat, we file correctly. Your tax due don't affect me. A 1099 NEC. 315's when it was due. Got a fax receipt to prove. Is it 23 or 22? I forgot what I needed to do. So in a year's time, you hear this tax season rhyme? Just sign the 8879 and we'll file it on time.
Stop! Don't drop! You store stocks in a shoebox. Stop being cheap, motherfucker.
Now that is the IRS hold music at the end.
That's great. I love it.
So
I love it.
It was Rick. Rick is the reason why it's done. I could have just kept working on those verses over and over and perfecting them and making them exactly how I wanted them in my head. This is the version that you saw is not the finished version in my head, but it's what Rick said. You've got to finish it and get it out there because it's never gonna be perfect and too much time will pass. And I knew that if I just let myself keep toiling away at the words,
tweaking it, and
it would have been, tax season would have been over. And
right. No, it's great for tax season. That's just the themes off of tax Twitter. I mean,
yep.
You just kind of interpreted them, and
and it's a lot of insider baseball. A lot of you got to be a tax preparer to get
Absolutely.
a lot of those, either acronyms or phrases. And but some of so what I did was DMX says the N word like 21 times in that track. So I took every time he said that, I replaced it with taxes. And then that was the foundation of the rap, and I built around that. So anytime I said taxes in there, it was the other word. And I got to work on my flow on that one. Like there's still some tweaks, but you're hearing the rough early version of it. By the time I think I might end up getting some mixing done and re-recording a little bit of it. But that was the rough copy for the Rough Riders anthem parody.
That's awesome. Well, the tax flow is not or taxable income is not cash flow. It made me think of the profitability show you just did with Nicole.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Bezos in his initial, and you can go look at this online, his initial letter to shareholders in 1997, I think that's the year they went public, Amazon, he said, if it comes down between presenting this company in terms of GAAP and net profit versus free cash flow per share, sign me up for free cash flow per share. That's going to be the metric that guides me. He said, margin doesn't pay my electric bill. And, there's a huge difference between profitability, no matter how you measure it. Accrual, cash, LIFO, FIFO, prepaids, whatever, depreciation method, right? That can all be played with. Any first year accounting student can manipulate the bottom line. That's why that old joke about the accountant, the accounting firm interviewing 3 accountants and the first one comes in, what's 2 plus 2? Well, it's 4. Yeah. And, 2 plus 2, well, what do you want it to be, right? But
which goes back to me and Ackerman's first episode, which I was arguing with him about 2 plus 2.
You can't lie with cash flow. This is why, we like dividends, because you can't BS a dividend. I can manipulate GAAP books all day. I can't manipulate a dividend check to a shareholder.
I love it. I love that the different lines people take different things in different ways too. And that's one of Rick's central themes too, is everybody's going to take things the way they do, but it's about how it impacts you and how that
Absolutely.
This was the first rap that my team actually liked at the firm.
Really?
One of the guys, he said this one is the most relatable one for them.
Oh, that I can see for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's like this is that voice too. These are the things that we deal with every
season. Day. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
But yeah, there's this one kind of, it didn't necessarily write itself. I did actually have to put some effort into it, and that's another thing that Rick said. Like sometimes it's just the efforts and the work and the habits that you do to get things done, and people don't know if it just wrote itself and it only took a couple hours or a couple years to do. By the time you're done with it, Leonard Cohen would spend years writing songs and Bob Dylan would spend minutes.
It's not amazing. I mean, you read about these songs that, the guy wrote on the beach or whatever, and it's like, oh, geez, just it also proves that value is subjective, right? It's not based on the labor that goes into it. You could spend, thousands of hours writing a piece of crap.
Absolutely.
Doesn't sell.
Value is subjective. He uses John Lennon and Eminem a lot, and those are 2 of my other spiritual guides. And one thing John Lennon says is, you got to see something to completion. Like he would just, when he started a song, he would finish it.
Yes.
He would see it to the end.
I remember reading that.
Yeah. And that was profound too. Like he would wake up some nights with the song in his head, and then he would just have to go downstairs and just start writing it right then and there.
Was it who was it, Lennon or was it McCartney? I forget, but you were talking about your mom and your dad, kind of being anti-rap or whatever, or at least your dad, and made me think, was it Lennon's aunt or McCartney's aunt that said, "You'll never make any money playing that damn guitar"?
Oh,
after they hit, it was one of the Beatles. I forget which one, but he bought her a gold-plated guitar with that saying or something, engraved on it. There's so many stories like that. Oh, you'll never, I remember one guy said to Elvis Presley, in fact, he was the manager of the Opera House, go back to driving the truck, son. You got no future in music. I mean, there's tons of examples of that.
That's the big thing that kind of Rick was saying too. Like when the people tell you no, and when people say you're not going to make anything of it, like that's all the more reason to do it.
To keep doing.
Nobody's doing it. That's the thing. When you do something that nobody's done, nobody's going to say that's genius. You should do that. You're going to make a ton of money doing it because it's never been done.
They're going to ridicule it. They're going to ridicule it and then violently oppose it. And all art is confrontational,
Yeah, I'm getting that. I'm already starting to see that there's some people, and this is another thing like Rick kind of, I don't know if this was in this book or another one, but there's some people that are always going to see you in one way, and they won't evolve their perception of you. They won't evolve what how you evolve. They won't evolve with you, and they're always going to see that, and you're never going to change that impression of them or of them. And so, like, you know, that tells you more about them than it does about you. And I'm starting to see that too. Like, there's some people that just don't accept this new version of me. Like, I'm evolving too, and maybe sure. Maybe it's the whole midlife thing and all that. But I think it was just a combination of a lot of different things, and the timing, and doing the podcast, and everything else. So,
well, he talks about that evolution thing. He talks about the works we do are at most chapters. There will always be a new chapter and another after that. The work begins to look like an old photo instead of a mirror image. So you're going to go back and look at these raps, 10 years from now, and you're going to have changed again. And you're going to look at it, and it's not a mirror image anymore. It's like looking at your high school photo or something.
High school photo. And I heard that you don't have a high school photo for me.
No, yeah, I'm working on that. They're in storage, and I got to go to the storage unit.
Work on it, because everybody's going to have that hover over where you get to see both, and it'll be classic when you get yours. Just got to go get into storage. But that's
and he also says, by definition, revolutionary ideas have no context. They invent their own.
By definition, you love to say that. That's
definition. Yeah, revolutionary ideas have no context. They invent their own. Again, profound.
It's so. Like touching on. I don't even know where to go from there. That was a great one. I guess the difference between like looking at the world the way it is and looking at the world the way it can be too, right? Or the way nobody sees the world in the same way. That's one thing that Rick says a lot too.
Yeah.
Nobody, like, we all have our own filters, and we all have our own life experiences and everything. And that's what makes all of our voices unique. So anytime somebody creates something, it's not going to be the same. The Beatles tried to recreate or the Beatles. This is talking about the competitiveness too. When Pet Sounds came out, Paul McCartney just played that on loop, and he absolutely loved it. And they tried to recreate that with Sgt. Pepper's, and in turn, the Beach Boys ended up recreating Sgt. Pepper's in a way, and they just inspired each other throughout. And that's not competition. That's inspiration. And that's what I feel like, that's what's happening to me with the Jasons, Jason Blummer, Jason Statz, and with Realize, with Ryan Lozanis, is like, that's the inspiration. And I'm just taking my own worldview and bringing this in. And so it naturally, like, everything I was doing somehow fit into, I was doing book reports before the Accounting High. We were already doing book reports throughout the year. And then the book reports just happened to fit. Now I happen to be in the principal's office now doing a book report. Right. All of it kind of just like this is the creative act. Like, this way I've seen it, everything I've been doing is art. Like, not too many people would have thought like that a podcast for accountants, that's not art. That's just, content. Or I don't know. I don't even know where it goes, but it was I always like to bring up Blake because, he's been huge inspiration. He's the reason that I'm doing this podcast. And he always sees everything I do as very unconventional and like he laughs out loud on a lot of it when he listens to the show. But he never would have like sanctioned anything I'm doing. He didn't think it was going to work. He didn't think this is going to play. Yet it was just me trying to do a version of what they're doing, right? Like, this is what him and David are doing. I'm just trying to do my own version of it.
Your own version of it. Yep. And it's completely different. Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah.
I was afraid people were going to compare us and try to say, like, this is just a recreation of the Cloud Accounting podcast.
Thank heaven it is, because, my God, can you imagine a world with full equality? I mean, there's a great German proverb: if you want equality, visit a cemetery. That just kind of sums it up. We're different. That's the human experience. That's what's great about it.
Whether you like it or not, we're all alien. We're all different. Some people show that, and some people hide it and they conform. And I said this on Dave Barrett's episode, like some people actually express themselves at what they really want to do, and that's what's going to make them different. If they don't and they hold all that in, then it's just more of the same.
Yeah, and like he says, nobody in the world is waiting for sameness. No. To listen to the artists, tune their guitar or strung the same notes, and it's so true. It's so true. Now, this was a great book, but I guess it's time to talk about the artist versus the entrepreneur.
It is.
This is the economist in me, okay? Because people talk about businessman being selfish and greedy and only giving a crap about profit, and the purpose of business is to make profit, and none of that's true. The purpose of business is not to make a profit. As Simon talks about, profit is a result. Profit is a result. It's a result of taking care of customers and providing them more value than the cash they pay you and all of that. My favorite line is from Edward Land, the founder of Februrary. He said, the most important thing is the bottom line. He said, how arrogant. The bottom line's in heaven. And I just think that puts everything in perspective. But so people try and equate, the entrepreneur with the artist because it's an act of creation. And it is. I mean, what Jobs did with the iPhone, the iPad, the iPod, whatever, it's an act of creation. But there is a difference. And it's a big one. And it's not bad or good. It's just, there is a difference. The artist is inner directed. They're telling you how they see the world, or at least they're expressing how they see the world. You may look at the result of their work and you may interpret it completely different, like we were talking about before. But the artist is inner directed. The entrepreneur, by definition, is outer directed. That's why my 42-year mentor, George Gilder, says that profit is an index of altruism. And altruism means other directed. So just like nobody walks into a store to please the merchant, right? You walk into a store to find what you want, the right price, and that makes you happy.
What's the opposite of altruism? Selfishness? Yeah. So art is selfish and entrepreneurs is altruistic?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say selfish that's a really good question. I never thought of that. What's the opposite of altruism? That's a great question for Jasper.
Yeah.
I maybe more self-interested, although entrepreneurs are self-interested. I mean, self-interest just means, we breathe. If you breathe and take your medicine this morning, you're self-interested, right? Because we all have to live. We all have to help ourselves before we help others, as the airlines say. But the point is, the artist can ignore the customer. The entrepreneur can't. The entrepreneur has to kneel down in front of the customer. He's their servant.
Yeah.
That's not how it works with art. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying they are different because they have different focuses.
No. I actually love this, and I'd love to expand on it a little bit here. So there is an act of selfishness with art in what Rick is saying, that you cannot listen to others and you're not doing this for them. You're doing it for you. And what you're doing and what you're creating is self-expression. Right. And it isn't necessarily for commerce. In a lot of cases, it works. And the artists that really continue to do it, eventually they hit and something is made for the masses, and sometimes it's the timing of it, sometimes it's the culture, sometimes it's the political atmosphere and whatever's going on. Sometimes it takes a long time for that art to see the light of day, even after they've been buried underground. That's when the art's revealed. But it's always the artist, and they did that for themselves. In the eyes of the entrepreneur or in the business, you can't survive without the customers, right? And you need them, and you need their approval, and you need to do this for them, and you have to have them in mind. And that's what we talk about in marketing. That's what we talk about. You talk about this is a relationship that we're building, and you need two people for a relationship. With art, it's not necessarily a relationship. It's your relationship with the art. So it's you and the art. It's not you and the audience.
Right.
I think, and that's the pure difference. I think some art is created for commerce and with an entrepreneur's eye. Some art is with that entrepreneur's eye. Like, I think that's what I'm doing with this one, with Tax Accountant's Anthem. I'm doing this for the audience and for the people. I'm not necessarily doing this one for myself. Like, I wrote this one with that in mind.
With that in mind, sure.
And this one actually isn't even commercial because it's not an ad. The other one that I did was an ad, and it was for somebody else too. So it's like the real art for me is going to be the biggest little toddler. That's the little toddler. So I think my artist is LT, and my entrepreneur is OKR.
OKR. Yeah, that's perfect.
I think that's the way I'm going to keep looking at them too. So everything I do with OKR, I'm going to have to do with the outward direction, with altruism. And anything I do with little toddlers, selfish, like a kid, is going to be like a kid, right? And it's going to be inner directed, because that's how I am. Like, and he talks about that too. Like, a lot of artists feel pain and feel joy differently than others, and I feel that. I had this happen to me. I was like Saturday night or Sunday night, I was just in pain, and I didn't even know why. And it's a deeper, longer conversation to have, but it's like it's a painful existence sometimes for me, because I feel things so hard. Like, I also feel excitement and joy. Like, and so it takes me to like entirely different places. And it's a good thing, but it's also a terrible thing that I have to deal with. And it's a painful existence. And that's why Rick says a lot of artists end up finding drugs and end up finding other ways of filling those holes, because and that's why a lot of them die of overdose or die early, because it's a painful existence for them. But then during those times of like, when they're experiencing that inspiration and that joy, that's where their art gets to shine in the world, and it sees that light of day. But in all other times, it's hard to live. And like lately, again, I've been dealing with that because I lean into my emotions and I live through them. And when you do that, it's dangerous sometimes too. So
sure, the highs are high, but the lows are probably lower, because the highs are higher than the average person or whatever. Isn't there something about musicians with the magic age? A lot of them have died at 27. And
it's true. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison,
comedians. I mean, look at
Jimi Hendrix.
Comedians too.
A lot of comedians, and that's the other art form that we were talking about, which is great.
They're tortured souls. I mean, but man, thank God we need them. We need all of them.
We do. We need Greg. I gotta get Greg back on here too. I think he's gonna be the math teacher because he used to teach math.
Oh, yeah, he did. Oh my God, he taught. I think he taught in junior high.
That's right. Yeah.
Have you ever? Has he ever told you the story about opening for Weird Al?
No, but
ask him about
one
that.
For me. Yeah,
ask him about. I heard you open for Weird Al Yankovic. It's a great. He told it on our show. It's a great story, and also when you get Ed Kless on,
Ed's coming on next week.
Excellent. He defines his job. You're going to love this. He defines his job at Sage. First off, he says it's the best job in the world. Mm-hmm. But he says, basically, I do book reports. I read books and then share them in my teachings. You know, he's been saying that since I've known him. I do book reports. So you can ask him about that.
Well, we're going to do some book reports with our new superintendent if he accepts the position.
Yeah,
I love that superintendent, because I knew, in a way, you're thinking of Superintendent Chalmers.
Yes,
from The Simpsons. Yeah, I figured. So you're Skinner and he's Chalmers. I get it.
Yep.
I get it. I got that after you said it, because that's immediately what came to mind, and I just didn't want to say it because I was like, maybe he's not talking about that. Maybe he's talking about another one. But
well, you're going to have I guess there has to be a school board too, doesn't there? You know, a bunch of fuss budgets on the school board.
Not until there's economic ties and enough money involved, right? That stuck to me too, the way you said that, like the economic ties. So the way I'm looking at this is, I want to find a way that people can stay energized with it, and because I have a lot of people helping, and a lot of people are inspired by this and asking how they can help. And
don't worry about that. It's Wikipedia.
Well, this is
people
it's Wikipedia.
will contribute to it. People will contribute to it because they like it. They like the association. It's their tribe. It's their people, It's their generation.
What I'm also thinking of is field trips, right? I'm looking at it in a sense of how can I award everybody in a way that it's not that they don't feel like they're doing this for that, but then it's also something else. So we already do this with a lot of app partners and people that they fly us out for these little trips and get all these accountants together, and that's just part of the the give and take, right? We're gonna help them out. We're happy to do it. And then they're also going to pay for us to go to this place. And then we go out to dinner. We go do these things. So I'm thinking of doing the same thing with anybody that's on the faculty or helping. Like, okay, we're going to go do this trip. And then Accounting High is going to cover all of it. And no agenda. We just go hang out. And also, I have another idea here that I'm gonna pitch to you. So we're doing this tournament, right? The ABC tournament is what I'm calling it now. It's gone through a lot of evolutions of the name, the Accountant Bracket Challenge. And people have been going in there, nominating the top 5. We're refining, we're continuing to see how that go. But the long tail on this is we're going to have best in class for the different sectors for media. So podcasts, all the different media content, like visual, the written, and the audio. We're already getting a lot of those. We're going to have communities that have all been nominated, and the other subscription services or the other educational type side of it. So one side of the bracket is going to be all the educational and communities and content. The other one's going to be the apps that are all 32 apps and 32 communities and education platforms, all competing to be in the Final Four and then to win. And all the apps will be segmented out in the different types of apps. So we're going to have best in class and the top 3 for all of these categories, right? Like based on everybody's votes and everybody's nominations. So there'll be awards, right? So I'm thinking an awards ceremony to have after the end of the tournament. It might be the second year that we do that if we can't pull it off this year. But having an awards ceremony, so it'll be like a conference, but so all the people that are top 3 in each category are invited. And then we would maybe sell tickets or something like that. And it would actually be like all these other conferences, but with no agenda, no speakers, no booths, nobody selling to anybody. Everybody's just there.
Just a bar.
Just for the awards ceremony. Just the bar. It's kind of like a wedding, I guess. And then a concert from OKR at the end after the awards ceremony. And that's it. Everybody's there, but there is no agenda, no speakers, just a bar.
The anti-conference.
The anti-conference. That's what this is going to be. And I'm hoping we can pull it off this year. But my big idea was to do it on, so I have this fascination with numbers, colors, letters, and all that. So the 1, 2, 3, so I wanted to call it the ABC 1, 2, 3, right? Because it's the top 3 in each category. And the ABC, the Accountant Bracket Challenge. And I could have it on 11, 11, 23. That's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And if we could have it in Hawaii, then visually, the 2 I's in Hawaii are in the 11. So the graphic would be Hawaii 11, 11, 23. And I got all these other. So the cost of the tickets would be $1,234.56 for 123 people max. So no more than that, which is similar to Jason's Thrival because they only had about 100 people and their tickets were about 1,200. So I would be like, okay, this is 123 people and the tickets are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I just came up with all of these things all in one night. It was just this whole big idea. But then I realized Hawaii probably is a little too expensive to do this in. So I gotta make it a little bit more realistic, but it could be in San Diego or something like that.
Yeah, it's a long flight for the East Coasters for sure.
Yeah. It's that's going to be too much Hawaii. I just like the way the graphic would look, right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's the long tail of this, and then eventually, hopefully this turns into an annual occurrence where we do this tournament every year, and then we have the award ceremony every year, after to award the winner and everything. So
are people nominating? You said apps, but software too. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got currently we have
QBC, Zero.
Mm-hmm. We have about 200 different things nominated right now, and there's only been 250 people that signed up, or give or take about 250. I haven't looked at it in a minute, but yeah. So we have sponsors for it now, and and I haven't landed on the prize. It's either going to be the Disney University or an actual like trip to Hawaii. So I've got $6,000 as the budget for the prize, which was kind of what I had in mind in the first place. So probably going to end up being the Disney University. I don't know how we're going to bridge the Hawaii thing to this, but we'll see. So
that's really
it's
neat.
Underway. Yeah, you got to go in and nominate your top 5 for the profession.
Oh, geez, I wouldn't know what to put.
Yeah.
Since I don't practice, I know.
I know. But there's still things you can nominate. Earmark. You can nominate Soul of Enterprise. You can nominate Accounting High. There's 3 of your 5 right there.
Yeah, it's true. I do listen to accounting podcasts, obviously. So
yeah, so you can just nominate 5 podcasts. Right now there's no rules on what to nominate. I think eventually we might like make it so people nominate in 4 different categories and then 1 overall best. So we get more categorical nominations instead of just people just nominating podcasts or just nominating apps. We're going to continue to refine it as we go, but that's been fun too. So
that's awesome.
I appreciate it, Ron. This was a good book report. I want to keep doing book reports, decentralize it now too, and make it like Wikipedia, but have that be an ongoing thing, because it was hard with 2 people. Both of them had to read the book. So now I can just get anybody, and kind of anybody has a book, or I had a book in mind, and have somebody else hop on and talk about the book. So
yeah, I think people love it. By the way, we just did one last week on our show, a book called The Crux. Okay. How leaders become strategists. And it's by a guy named Richard Brumelt, who wrote a book called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. So he's a strategy consultant. And it was a really good book. It was a really, really good book. And it turned out to be a great show because, now you don't have to read the book. We've given you the emphasis of what he said, the major points, just kind of like what we did here with Rick's. Although I would want people to read this one because I think it's so good, because you will go back and contemplate these sentences of his. Well,
this book is for the one thing I could say about this book is it's universally for anybody. I think anybody can take this book and do what they will with it in any walk of life or anywhere they are in life, and get something different out of it. Everybody will get something different out of it, and it's inspiration. This is going to inspire people. I'm so glad that you kept going past the 10th page.
So am I.
Because I didn't even start at the 10th in the beginning. I opened the book up, and I was with Nicole in the airport, and her firm is Momentum Accounting. And I literally opened this book up. This is that story that he did when he was at the bookstore. I opened the book up to the Momentum chapter. And I'm like she's not a big reader, but I was like, if you're going to read any book, this one's speaking to you right here. She's standing right there. Went to the Momentum chapter. And that's what I was doing after I got it, because I was a little. Oh, and also, I had ordered the book on the plane because I listened to the podcast with him, Tim Ferriss, and I found out about the book, and I ordered it on the plane. The next day, I get a picture from my wife showing me the book, and she thought she ordered it because she was going to order it for me.
Ah, okay.
And she didn't know if she ordered it. She's like, I must have blacked out and ordered this for you, but here's your book that I was going to get you. And I was like, no, I just ordered it too. So it was like it hit in all different directions. It was like the perfect timing for it. So had I not ordered it, she would have ordered it for me. And had I not ordered it, I probably would have bought it at the airport. So
that's awesome. That's one of the problems with reading Kindle. You can't just open a book at a random spot like you did in the airport. But
this book too, I do like to talk about the covers on our book reports. So, and I probably should have done this in the beginning, but the cover itself is an artwork. You've seen the cover, right? So that's very similar to the cover of the Broken Record podcast, except it's broken. But this looks like a record, but it's also just pure. It's just a circle, and to me, it looks like a coaster, right? It's something different for everybody, but just the feel of it, it's like it's got that woven fabric, and then on the back, it's got the circle without the dot.
Without the dot.
It's probably symbolic for something. He's got a bunch of like blank pages in the end to make notes, to take notes in. But what I do with books is I'll read them the first time, and I experience it just to read it, and I don't take any notes ever. Any books, I'd stop myself from making any marginal notes or anything on the side. I just try to read it. And that's one thing that Rick said too. When you experience something in life, don't analyze it. Just take it in for what it is and then you could go back later and analyze it.
Yep.
And
I
go
do
back
the same thing. I read it first, and then if it's really profound like this one is, I will read it again and highlight it.
Yeah. Because I don't like that to distract me from actually taking it in.
Exactly. It's like trying to edit as you're writing.
Right.
That doesn't work. They're two separate functions.
Yeah. And going through and the next time you can get so much more out of it too. And that's kind of what I've been doing with this. Like I've been listening to it now, but also reading. One thing that I started doing with this book, and I think I did it before, but if I have the audiobook and the actual book, I'll have my headphones on, listening to it and following it along with my eyes. That's an entirely different experience too. And I was reading this book when he was talking about how when he's reading, sometimes he'll have a thought as he's reading, and then his mind is there with that thought, following that thought while he's still moving along with the pages, and eyes are turning and you're reading the words, but you're not taking it in. This happens to me all the time when I'm reading books. This is why it takes me so long to read. And then I will have to go back 3 or 4 pages sometimes and go back to the spot. And he's describing what I do in real life as what he does. And I wasn't doing it because I had the book on in my ears too. And so there was some aspect of that forced me to stay with it and pay attention, because I didn't have my own voices in my head. I had the author's voice in my head rather than. So I don't know if that's a technique, because it's probably going to happen still. If I have it listening to it, it's going to inspire a thought, and I don't even know my head leaves.
There's a great book by a guy named Mortimer Adler called How to Read a Book. Now, why would you ever read a book on how to read a book? But he describes the 5 levels of reading. And, obviously enjoyment, romance novel or whatever. And then you've got the technical reader, right? Like we have to read tax updates and that kind of crap. But the highest form of reading is, I'm going to botch the word, synoptic or syntopic, but it's where you synthesize different things that you've read together. So I do it too, when you read something in a book and it sparks 50 other ideas from other books or just other things, that's what you're doing. You're synthesizing those ideas.
And that's how I described this.
That's the highest form of reading.
That's what Rick did with life. He synthesized life for me in this book.
He did.
One last thing, and I'll leave you with that. I throw out so many ideas with you because you inspire me too. But with Terrell, there's a 3-prong class that we're going to be able to teach as we're writing this book. We're going to be able to teach how to rap. That's going to be part of it. And so the process of writing it, we're going to be recording too. So it'll be courses at Accounting High. How to rap, how to write a book, and how to run an accounting practice. The 3s, power of 3, right?
Yeah.
And that's the content creating itself, right? So in the process of writing, we document it, and that's a series. How to rap, and there isn't a how to rap. I do have a couple of books on it. I'm sure I could teach a thing or two about actually how to do that, and that's in of itself like an art form, and that's the poetry of all of this. And then we're doing all of this to synthesize all the other ways to run an accounting practice these days. So
that's awesome. One thing on this show I mentioned that we just did Friday on this book,
The
Crux. His definition of a business model blew my mind. I mean, this is what I love about a great book, when it bends your mind and it can never go back to the original shape. So I'll just leave everybody with this challenge because I just love this. In essence, a business model explains where revenue will be earned when services are provided free of charge.
Say it again.
In essence, a business model explains where revenue will be earned when services are provided free of charge.
So that's like a lot of these, that's like ChatGPT now, and a lot of these other like apps and things that start out free until they develop the actual product.
Yeah, or make it available. I think chat will always have they say they will always have a free version.
Sure.
But there's going to be a premium version, which of course they will add to. And
it's like Earmark.
Exactly.
Earmark.
But this is giving away the services for free. If your firm gave away all of its services for free, when I entered the profession, we used to lowball the audit, even the tax work. To do what? To get the consulting work. Because the consulting work was more. What if he gave it all away?
Payroll now.
Yeah. What if he gave it all away? All of it. All of it. No lost leaders. No high. You gave it all. Then you're stuck in one thing. You're charging for the transformation and the relationship.
Guiding transformations.
That's it. That's the highest form of value. Not this. It's not the services, folks. It's not the service. I'll go to my grave saying that, because that's going to be impossible to convince people of. It's not about the services. That's not where our value is.
Well, this has been a transformational experience here. Thank you for another thing about this book. Like, you mentioned it to me as if you were telling me about it, and this is the book that I had in front of me when you messaged me. Like, this was like, it was kind of perfect, the timing. So
it was.
I love how these things happen.
Yep. I'm sure there's lots of books I love that I could share, but yeah, let's keep going with this.
We'll keep doing this. This is the Principal's Office series. I love this. This has been great. I got a lot of great feedback so far. It's great the way these things work out. So I appreciate you coming back on. I'm going to be meeting up with your boss next week. So
excellent. That'll be good.
We'll get a report in there. I know he's no stranger to book reports, but I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I think it'll be good.
We'll ask him about the Mets, and that'll be the end of the show. He'll take you all the way through. He's a big baseball fan.
Should I wear my Yankee hat, though?
Oh, God, yeah. Right. That'll piss him off. Cool. Yes.
Yeah, all right, I'll do that.
Yes, that will not make him happy. Either that or Red Sox. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have the Red Sox. I am from New York, though, so I did grow up Yankees. You're either the Mets, Jets, or Nets.
Right,
or the Yankees, Giants, or Knicks. So,
yeah, he grew up in New York too. So, yep.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Scott.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, man.
Peace out.